All right, well, good afternoon. It's we got a minute or so to get started, but we've got a lot of ground to cover. I think I've been real fortunate enough to get these three successful geologists here, so you're in for a bit of trouble. There's 4 geologists up here. The title of this panel discussion here is called Insights into the Business of Exploration. And it's 2 parts. This is the first. Second, we're going to do at 5:20 with a different group of people. And what I wanted to get into here is the actual discovery process, how it happens, and that sort of thing. So what the people up here, I've got Tim Coughlin, who is now president of Tigris. He was involved and actually made the discovery Lydian has in Armenia. Prior to that, he was, I guess, exploration manager for Anglo Gold in South America, currently working mostly in Turkey. Next is Ira Thomas. She is was heavily involved in the discovery of the Akati diamond mine. And what else?
No, Divik.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Divik.
I like to
take credit for that
Academy,
Yeah, Divik, my mistake. And now president of Kamenak Gold, who've got a deposit up in the Yukon. To her credit, she's the only woman I know who found the diamond she wears. And on the far right, your right, is Miles Thompson, who I've known for a long time. First met in Brazil when he kept us out of trouble when the privatization of CVRD. Miles worked for Goldfields, has been independent for quite a while, and put together the property package that actually eventually resulted in the discovery of the Timok deposit in Serbia. And I'm Brent Cook. I'm an investment, not advisor, actually I'm a geologist, economic geologist, and write an investment letter that's about what I'm doing with my money in this sector. So to get started, I want to start with Miles. And I want this to be free flow. If there's questions, come into it, ask the questions. I want you to be able to leave here with a better sense of the discovery process, what works, what doesn't work. And I'll start with Miles and Timok. I'd like to hear how this was a long time ago, you put this property package together, had the idea that something was there. How did that come about, and how did you end up finally with the discovery?
It's not really rocket science.
Do you need the microphone?
Okay. Hello, is that better? Yeah. It's not rocket science. I mean, it's basically about real estate. I've worked for many years in Brazil, and I've owned over the years 3 portfolios of properties up in the Carajás district. There's a whole bunch of mines there. It's spectacular geology, and I've made money on each of the 3 portfolios. And it was the same approach with the Timok. I went there originally in 2004 for Goldfields, looking at buying some stuff in the privatization. And to be in a belt that well endowed, I mean, these are the largest copper mines in Europe, and nobody done any exploration there for 20 years because of the collapse of former Yugoslavia. And you had the ability to buy ground that you would get nowhere near if you were in the Andes or a well-known copper belt. So over the last 10 years, we picked up whatever properties we could, and you have to kind of be persistent. We originally picked up ground that has turned out to be not worth very much, and bit by bit we've added to the portfolio. Now we have at least a couple of discoveries, and it's really a question of just process and being in good real estate. You have to be in a well-endowed district.
And that was the Timok district, the Bor district in Serbia.
The Bor district, yeah.
Okay. Ira, talk about the diamond discovery.
Sure, and I think just continuing from Miles's comments about endowment, I mean, it is so important to have the right endowment. What we don't always recognize, however, as geologists, is where the best endowment is. And so I would say, it's very key to underpin any of your strategy with good science. And maybe that sounds kind of obvious, but it's amazing how easy it is to lose sight of the sort of the important foundation of tackling these projects with good science. So in the case of the diamond discoveries in northern Canada, this is kind of classic. You know, this is an area where the potential for diamonds was really never recognized, even though from first basic principles it was a good place to explore for diamonds. And it was two geologists, Chuck Fipke and Stu Blusson, who became educated on what could represent good endowment for diamonds and decided that northern Canada had been overlooked and represented a great potential endowment. And it was, you know, their initiative and their perseverance again and persistence, because this wasn't an easy exercise. You know, this is a part of the world which is remote, expensive to operate in, and diamonds are a particularly challenging commodity because they take a long time to explore for and ultimately develop into producing mines. So, you know, they went about this exercise, and it was a 10-year commitment to basically prove up their thesis that this is an area that could be prospective for diamonds. You know, we were very fortunate to kind of be riding on their coattails in the sense that, you know, they were the first movers. Once the discovery was made, you know, our company, which is a little company, a little junior called Aber Resources at the time, was able to move fast because we worked in that part of the world, mostly exploring for other commodities. So we quickly went out and sought expertise in this area. You know, we went out and we went to the experts. We went and found a doctorate in diamond geology from South Africa and sought his advice on where we should be acquiring land within this area, so we too could get down to the business of exploring for diamonds. So we kind of came into it secondary, but at the end of the day, we ended up with some fantastic ground, and ultimately that resulted, after about another 5 years of persistent exploration, in the discovery of Diavik, which was developed as Canada's second diamond mine and is considered, even to this day, the world's richest.
My recollection was this whole concept of diamonds in Canada came out of a study done and some work done in South Africa, and it jumped from South Africa to Brazil, up to Arkansas, and finally up to Canada, which was a long process.
A very long process, and I would say the science, you know, originated through funding by De Beers, but eventually became public through the University of Cape Town and a professor by the name of Dr. John Gurney, who decided to step outside of the De Beers envelope and make that knowledge readily available to the exploration community. And that's what transformed this business, is that ability then to take all those learnings and from academia and then apply them in the field. And it was John's science of kimberlite exploration and looking for the elusive G10 garnets, which ultimately led to the discovery of Acadie, and then ultimately Diavik as well. We applied the very same science to our project, and it worked. Doesn't always, but in this case it worked very well.
Mm-hmm. Tim, I know your story. Let's hear what you say publicly.
And those of you who know the story as well will be expecting me to say that the secret is to make sure you keep your eyes out of the car window, because the underlying story, I suppose the bottom line story, is that we found Amulsar, which is in Armenia. It's now about 4.3 million ounces, getting bigger, driving down the main road, going somewhere else. But the fact of the matter is that we had a strategy, and we had conviction about that strategy. We did quite a bit of science as well, and our strategy was a first mover strategy. So we were selecting, as opposed to geological regions, we were selecting countries to start with. We were looking at, in that 2003, we put our eyes on Armenia and made the discovery of Amulsar in 2005. But in 2003, they'd released a new mining law that we thought was workable. And we knew just broadly that there was a metallogenic belt that went from Turkey through Armenia and into Iran with Rhodop's Pontide Arc and the Alborz Arc in Iran. So we knew that little country in the middle there hosted the potential to have gold deposits. But then what we did is something that I've done quite regularly, or routinely in my career when we go to new countries, is what's called a time-space analysis. And that's a very basic desktop study, essentially running through the available literature and plotting what is the consensus behind the age of different types of rocks and the age of different types of deformation events, and then where they overlap. And then what we simply do is next to that we put a histogram of metal endowment, which is either gold or copper tonnage versus the age. And very simply, in one very simple graphic format, which takes about 2 weeks to do, you can see where the major episodes of gold or copper emplacement are, which rocks they're related to, which rocks are younger than them, which rocks are older than them, and that very quickly hones you into an area. It may not find you a deposit, but what it does do is give you that scientific conviction to look harder, I suppose. And so that's what took us ultimately, initially to Armenia, and then ultimately the discovery was made driving down the main road going somewhere else.